Amy stood frozen in the middle of the barn. The wind howled through the open doors, but it wasn't the cold that made her shiver. It was the strange feeling in her chest. Something was off. Something was coming. And deep down she knew. It had something to do with Ty. The morning at Heartland had started like any other. Birds chirped. Horses ran free in the fields, but Amy couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest. She had been dreaming of Ty more often lately. Not sad dreams, just real ones. Dreams that made her wake up thinking he was still alive. She brushed off the thoughts and walked to the barn to begin her chores. But the moment she picked up the saddle, she dropped it again. Her hands trembled, and her eyes filled with tears. "Why now?" she whispered. Meanwhile, Jack sat quietly on the porch sipping his coffee. His old eyes weren't calm today. He looked toward the road more than once, as if waiting for something, or someone. Lou walked past him and paused. She didn't say anything, but their eyes met. She knew too. Something was about to happen. Jack gave a small nod, and Lou walked on without a word. Tim came riding in from the fields, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Everything ready?" he asked Jack quietly. Jack didn't answer. He just looked back at the barn. Inside, Amy was cleaning out the tack room when she found it. An old photo of Ty. It had fallen behind the shelf. It was from their wedding day. The edges were worn and the color had faded, but Ty's smile still hit her like a wave. She sank to the floor, holding the photo to her chest. The sound of hooves echoed outside. Amy stood up quickly. She looked out the barn door and saw a figure near the gate. It was too far to tell who it was. Her heart raced. Was it just a delivery man? Or... Amy took a step forward, unsure if she should run or stay. The figure didn't move much. Just stood there, waiting. The wind picked up again, throwing dust into the air. Amy shielded her eyes but kept staring. Her mouth opened slightly. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew that shape. She knew that stance. Her hands began to shake. Suddenly, the camera of the moment zoomed out in our minds, leaving us with one big question. Could it be? Could Ty really be standing at the gate of Heartland? Amy didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside made her sit up in bed, heart racing. Was it him? Was he still out there? Or was her mind playing tricks again? She stared at the old photo on her nightstand, the one she found earlier in the tack room. Ty's smile felt closer now, like he was just outside her window. And yet, no one had knocked. No one had spoken. Morning came, and the house felt too quiet. Even Lindy noticed. "Mommy, are you sad again?" the little girl asked, tilting her head. Amy forced a smile and hugged her. "No, baby. I'm just thinking." In the kitchen, Lou stood by the window watching the road. She jumped when her phone buzzed. It was a message from a blocked number. "He's alive. Tell her the truth." Her hands went cold. She glanced at Jack, who had just walked in. "It's time," Lou whispered. Jack looked tired, his voice heavy. "She needs to know. But how do you tell someone their heart didn't lie to them after all this time?" At the same moment, Amy walked through the stable when she noticed something odd. One of the stalls had been used recently, but none of the horses were missing. Fresh hay, a clean water bucket. She crouched down and found something in the dirt, a small carving of a horse. It was Ty's style. He used to carve these for Lindy. Her hand clutched it tightly, her legs trembling. She looked around, whispering his name like it might summon him. Later that day, Amy received a message on her phone. No name. Just 5 simple words. "I'm coming home. Ty." She gasped and dropped the phone. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. She crawled over and picked it up again, reading the words over and over. It couldn't be a joke. No one else knew about the carving. No one else would dare. She ran to Lou's office. "Tell me the truth," Amy said, her voice shaking. Lou looked at her, guilt written across her face. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Amy stepped back. "He's alive, isn't he?" Lou's silence was louder than any scream. Amy turned and walked out, clutching the wooden horse in her hand. Somewhere in the distance, the wind carried a sound only she could hear. Ty's voice, soft, familiar, calling her name. Let me know when you're ready for part 3. Secrets and Suspicion. Amy's world was spinning. The carving, the message, Lou's silence. It all pointed to one thing. Ty was alive. But why hadn't anyone told her? Why had she been grieving for years while the people closest to her kept something so big, so life-changing locked away? Her footsteps were quick and angry as she marched across the ranch. She didn't care who she ran into. She needed answers, and she needed them now. In the barn she found Caleb saddling a horse. He looked up, surprised. "Amy, you okay?" She held up the carving like it was evidence in a trial. "Where did this come from?" Caleb looked at it and froze. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Tell me the truth, Caleb," she demanded, stepping closer. "Was Ty here?" Before he could answer, Tim stepped into the barn. "Amy, stop." His voice was firm, but it shook slightly. "You're not ready to hear everything." Amy turned to him, eyes burning with pain. "Don't tell me what I can or can't handle, Dad. If he's alive and you knew, then you all betrayed me." Tim lowered his eyes. "It's not that simple. We couldn't say anything. We were under orders." Amy blinked. "Orders? What kind of orders?" Tim sighed. "Government orders. Ty was placed into witness protection. After he helped stop an illegal animal trafficking ring, his life was in danger. They faked his death. No one could know, not even you." Amy's hands dropped to her sides. Her breath caught in her throat. "You let me think he was dead. You let Lindy grow up without her father. You let me fall apart." Tim stepped forward, trying to explain. "We thought it was for your safety, too. If you knew, you'd be in danger. We hated it, Amy, every single day." She couldn't listen anymore. Amy walked out of the barn and headed straight to the old cabin, the one she and Ty had spent so many weekends fixing up together. Her heart pulled her there, and deep down, she knew why. When she reached the door, she saw boot prints in the dirt, fresh ones. And beside the porch, a half-finished carving of a bear sat on a log. It was the same carving Ty had started years ago, and never finished. Amy stepped inside the cabin slowly. The air was warm, and it smelled like wood and smoke. A mug sat on the table, still steaming. "Ty?" she whispered. Her voice cracked, but no one answered. She looked around. A jacket hung on the chair. It was Ty's. His initials were stitched on the collar. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the floor. He had been here. He was real. And someone had been lying to her for a very long time. Amy returned to the house with fire in her eyes and pain in her chest. The cabin wasn't a memory. It was a message. Ty had been there, recently. She'd seen his things, felt his presence, and everyone who claimed to love her had kept this from her. The betrayal stung deeper than she could ever explain. She burst through the door of the house where Jack and Lou were quietly talking in the kitchen. The moment they saw her, they froze. "I want the truth," Amy said, her voice breaking but strong. "All of it. Right now." Lou looked at Jack. Jack stood up, setting his coffee cup down carefully. "Amy, sit down." "No, I've been sitting for years. Sitting in grief, sitting in silence. While all of you, what, protected me by lying?" Jack took a deep breath and finally spoke. "Ty's alive, Amy. He never died on that clinic table. The bullet didn't kill him. It just opened a door none of us were ready for." He told her everything. How Ty had been targeted by smugglers after he testified against them. How the Canadian authorities stepped in. How Ty agreed to vanish to keep Amy and Lindy safe. They held a closed funeral. The body she saw wasn't real. The goodbye was staged. And it wasn't just for the world, it was for her protection. Amy stood still, shaking. "So you made me bury a lie? You let me hold my daughter every night and tell her father was in the stars, when all along he was just out of reach?" Lou wiped her tears. It was never meant to be forever. We thought the danger would pass. We hoped he could come back sooner, but the threat never truly faded. Until now. Amy's heart felt like it was breaking all over again, but this pain was different. It was betrayal layered over hope, grief tangled with confusion. So all those times I dreamed of him, he might have been closer than I knew. Jack nodded. He never stopped watching over you, Amy. He never stopped loving you. Every carving, every message, he found ways to stay connected without putting you in danger. Amy turned toward the door. I need air. She didn't wait for anyone to follow her. Outside, she stood under the big sky, letting the cold wind cut through the heat of her emotions. Her fingers clutched the carving again. She looked down, at it, then up at the mountains in the distance. If you're really out there, Ty, she whispered, then come back. Not in dreams, not in shadows. For real. The camera of her soul zoomed out once more, showing a woman who wasn't just broken, but ready to fight for the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The sky over Heartland was painted with soft orange and pink, the last light of day slipping behind the hills. Amy stood alone near the paddock, staring at the gravel road that led to the ranch. Her arms were crossed, but it wasn't from the cold. It was the storm inside her. She hadn't spoken much since the truth came out. She hadn't cried either. Her heart was too full of waiting. Every second stretched into forever. And then, far off, she heard it, the low, familiar hum of a truck engine. Jack stepped out onto the porch, his eyes locking on the road. Amy, he called gently. She didn't move at first. Then she saw it. A pickup truck, dusty and old, crawling up the path like it had driven across time itself. Her breath caught. The truck rolled to a stop near the barn. The engine cut off. The door didn't open right away. Amy took one step forward. Her hands clenched. Was it really happening? The door creaked open. A boot touched the ground. Then another. Slowly, a tall figure stepped out. He was older, more worn, his hair slightly longer. A beard shadowed his jaw. But his eyes. Those eyes hadn't changed. They were the eyes that once told her she was home. The man took off his hat and held it over his heart. Amy's knees weakened. It was Ty. He stood still, like he was afraid to come closer. Amy didn't move either. The air between them was full of everything unsaid. Years of love, loss, silence, and hope. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, Ty said, voice rough like gravel. Amy's voice cracked. I saw you every night, in every dream, in every tear. He took a step closer. I wanted to come back every day. I thought about you and Lindy every second, but they said if I came back too soon, they'd find you. I couldn't risk you. Amy's hands were trembling, but she didn't wipe the tears now falling. You let me bury you, Ty. I buried myself, he said softly. I didn't know how else to protect you. From the house, Lindy had run out unnoticed. She saw the man beside her mother and froze. Her small voice carried through the wind. Mommy, is that Daddy? Amy turned around, shocked. She hadn't even heard Lindy come out. Ty dropped to his knees, his voice shaking. Lindy, it's me, baby. She ran to him, small arms, full heart, and wrapped herself around his neck. Ty held, her tightly, tears running down his face as he kissed her head over and over. Amy stepped forward, every emotion crashing down at once. She joined them, falling into Ty's arms. The family was whole again, but changed, scarred, older, and yet, in that moment, none of it mattered. Ty held them both like he would never let go again. His arms around Amy and Lindy didn't just offer comfort. They begged for forgiveness. Amy's face pressed into his shoulder, but her eyes stayed wide open. This was real. He was warm, breathing, solid. The ache in her chest that had lived there for years cracked open, spilling tears she didn't even know she still had. Lindy touched her father's face, her tiny fingers tracing the lines time had drawn there. You look different, she said softly. Ty gave a broken laugh, smiling through his tears. I feel different too, sweetheart. pulled back just slightly, enough to look at his face. "I should be angry. I should hate you," she whispered. "But all I feel is this." She placed her hand over his heart. "You're still beating." They sat together on the porch steps, wrapped in a blanket Jack had brought out quietly. He didn't say a word, just placed it around them and gave a nod. He had no need for speeches. His eyes said it all. Relief, sorrow, pride. Inside, Lou watched through the window, holding Katie close, her own tears falling. Amy asked the question that had been waiting behind her silence. "Did you ever try to come back?" Ty's jaw tightened. 100 times. I even drove back once. Got as far as the next town, but they followed me. I turned around. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't bring danger to you and Lindy. That's the only thing that stopped me. Amy looked down at Lindy, who was curled into her father's chest, already drifting off in his arms. "She waited for you. I told her stories. She remembered you. You weren't forgotten." Ty smiled. "I knew you'd keep me alive in her heart." His voice cracked again. "But you kept me alive too, Amy. Every day I survived out there. It was for you." The stars came out, one by one, like witnesses to a moment the universe itself had been waiting for. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. Ty stayed close, holding the life he nearly lost. Amy stayed silent, holding the man she never stopped loving. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over Heartland, casting golden light over the frost-covered ground. Inside the house, it was quiet, but not the same kind of quiet that had haunted Amy for years. This silence was peaceful, full of breath, full of presence. Ty sat at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a warm mug. Across from him, Amy watched him carefully, her emotions still tender but no longer closed off. It felt strange, almost dreamlike, seeing him there again, in the same chair he used to sit in. But this time, everything had changed. "I don't even know who you are anymore," Amy said softly. "You're still Ty, but you're different." Ty nodded slowly. "I had to become someone else to survive, but I held on to the parts that mattered, the parts that belonged to you." Amy reached across the table and touched his hand. "I'm not the same either. After losing you, I broke. I got up every day for Lindy, but something inside me never healed." Ty looked down, guilt settling into his face. "If I could go back and change it, I would. But if I had come back too soon, they might have hurt you. I had to stay away. It killed me. But staying alive was the only way I could ever come home." Jack walked in then, clearing his throat. He looked at Ty, then Amy. "Life's full of hard choices. Sometimes you don't get to pick what's right. You just do what keeps people breathing." He placed a hand on Ty's shoulder. "You did what you had to, and now it's time to heal." Later that day, Ty walked the land again. The trees, the horses, the open sky. It all felt like coming home to a piece of himself. Lindy rode her pony beside him, smiling up at him every few steps. Amy watched from the fence, her heart aching. In a new way, not from pain, but from gratitude. He was here. Against all odds, he had come back. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner. One seat at the table had been left empty for so long. Tonight, it wasn't. Ty sat between Amy and Lindy, his plate full, his laughter soft, but real. The yata. Food didn't matter. The words didn't matter. What mattered was that the table had been made whole again. After dinner, Amy and Ty stepped outside. The stars were bright again. He took her hand gently. "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight," he said, "but I want to spend every day earning it." Amy leaned her head on his shoulder. "You already have, just by coming back." The past couldn't be erased. The pain couldn't be undone. But there was something stronger than both. The choice to keep going, together. In that quiet moment, under the wide Heartland sky, Amy knew one truth deep in her soul. He was worth the wait, and their story wasn't over. It was just beginning again.